Welcome to Stuff Hitting the Fan Leadership Challenges as part of the coronavirus lockdown that we're experiencing in different states. Not sure if in your state you're locked down or if you're still out and about, but we are talking about leadership issues specific to crisis level like this when stuff's hitting the fan. There's leading in change when you're making changes. There's leading in times of lots of chaos, but this is just like DEFCON 2. There's probably a level beyond what we're experiencing now, but this is pretty heavy duty. What the hell is going on? The house seems to be burning level of leadership issues requires some different perspective on leadership. We have with us Eldonna Lewis Feranandez, who is a retired U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant. Thank you for your service, Eldonna. Eldonna and I've had the opportunity to do a lot of work together, and she has some great insights to bring to the table in, how do you lead effectively in a situation like this? Eldonna, before, when we were doing the pre-show, you were talking about how the military prepares for scenarios like this, where it's just like everything's just like, unplanned, uncharted territory, under fire, and it's very intense. Could you share some more with that with our viewers?
Yeah, the military has the best training in the world for being crisis trained. We were always going through constant exercises and having to just, situations thrown at us that were actually crisis management, how we would handle those, and then we'd be graded and we'd have feedback afterwards, the after action review, what worked, what didn't, what could be improved for next time. But like we were talking earlier, it's first of all, the leader needs to be calm, and because everybody will follow the leader. If the leader's in crisis mode and not operating with some level of control, then everybody else will be out of control. So that's kind of thing number one. The leader needs to be in total control. And they trained us for that constantly in the military.
So it's back to that training till you get it into your DNA approach.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, and we did exercises once a quarter, and then at times we would do different training. So we had our regular wartime training exercises. Since I was a contracts person, we trained as if we were deployed to a wartime environment, how we would do contracting and purchasing there. Mm-hmm. But then there was also other things thrown in, like you had to be weapons qualified. You had to learn how to do self-aid buddy care. You had to understand chemical warfare and how to don the gas mask and how to operate in a complete MOP 4 situation, which is all the gear, the gas mask suit, the gloves, the boots, everything, being able to operate like that for hours. So we would train not only in our job, but also in other types of things that maybe somebody was injured and the medical personnel couldn't get there. So everybody had to have some kind of knowledge. It was called self-aid buddy care. How can you stop somebody from bleeding or splint a break or treat a burn wound, or what if somebody's poisoned, or what if somebody's gassed? You had all types of things that you learned in a crisis situation. So when that crisis hits, bam, all right, you just operate in that mode.
So it's a lot about the preparation.
Yeah, definitely. Well, just like think about when you took the motorcycle safety course to learn how to ride a motorcycle. And one of the things I remember them constantly doing was there was a guy standing there, and you'd have to get up to at least third gear, if not fourth gear, and you had to go full out, and then he'd point one way or the other, and you had to swerve. That was training for, hey, here's an obstacle in the road, I got to swerve to miss it. It's the same kind of thing.
Well, and we find that a lot of times in motorcycle accidents, it's because the rider didn't swerve, didn't apply the brakes correctly, and it may have very well been avoidable or at least very less severe.
Yeah, I think about, many years ago, I was out riding with a couple of women. We had a ladies' ride. There were three of us, and we dealer, and then we went to Cook's Corner there in Orange County and had a burger, and then we were riding off, and there was a car in front of us that slammed on the brakes. Well, the girl who was leading swerved around the guy, and the girl right behind her, I was in the third position, hit her brakes too hard, and I saw it coming, and the bike just went out from under, and she slid one way, the bike slid the other way, but my training from all that swerving, I just swerve right in the middle of the two of them and came to a stop, and I managed to to miss going down because of that training that I had. So it
Mm-hmm.
kicked in later when I needed it.
Yep. Can rely on the skills that you've drilled in advance. It seems that also in crisis mode like this, one of the things from a leadership standpoint that is different from most other scenarios, pretty much all the information, the solid ground that leaders are used to standing on just isn't there. You have to make decisions with way less than perfect information, a lot of information that later proves false. Is that something that you prepared for as part of that military training in those scenarios?
Well, you had to, and think like a negotiator. I'm always teaching about verifying the facts. There's so much fake news out there, and I'm not just talking about from the political sense. I'm talking about
Right.
all this stuff that's going around about, oh, here's some things that's going to cure coronavirus, and here's some things you need to do, and here's what some doctor said, and you go and you find that it's really fake. So a lot of people are buying into that. And we got told, you got to listen to your chain of command. So to me, right now, the chain of command is those organizations, as the Center for Disease Control and the World Health Organization. Those are my chain of command, and if it comes from them, okay, that's factual. But if somebody else puts out something, I'm going to go out and verify that it's factual. And it's one thing that I'm doing, and we talked about this during the pre-show prep.
Yes.
Was I get up in the morning. Okay, we live in California. California is a little more stringent than a lot of states in the U.S. There's very few states that are at the level that we are at. So I wake up in the morning and I have my prayer time, and then I go and I look, okay, is California still on the same level, or have we gotten more significant, or has it been relaxed? I check that, and then I go about my day, and I don't pay attention to all that other noise, because that noise can create clutter in the mind and kind of get you off in a chaotic kind of fear storm where you start, oh my gosh, this info and this info. And I know people they're looking at this report and that report and this report, and they're reading this and they're looking at this video and they're getting all spun up. And I refuse to do that. I go and I check the factual information. I check for California, and then I check to see the numbers in other countries. With my stuff I'm doing in Kenya, I want to make sure that Kenya's okay too, because a lot of my ladies live in a slum, and I'm really concerned about them. If that virus goes through there, it's going to be a lot of problems. But
Yeah.
that's kind of all I do. And the rest of the day, like what I did today, it being Sunday, now I'm still working at my job, but with it being Sunday, I went out in my garden. I did a Facebook Live, or not a Facebook Live. I did a video about how to make egg in a hole for everybody. And then it's like, okay, I'm not going to talk about this stuff. I'm going to talk about something here. Look, here's 3 things you need to make egg in a hole: a piece of bread, an egg, butter. Take a glass, make a hole, put it in the butter in the pan, crack the egg in there, flip it a couple times. You got egg in a hole. Bam. Those are the kind of things that I'm focusing on. Then I was in my garden all day, so I just didn't pay attention to a lot of stuff. You got to detach from a lot of that stuff and verify the facts.
Well, it seems to just to recap real quick. First, be calm. Second, get good information, which also implies over communicate to those that you're leading. And then thirdly, now it seems to be moving into have some core principles to stand on and stay with those, regardless of what's going on around you.
Yeah, definitely, because there are people who operate. Actually, I was in the office this week, Monday and Tuesday. Monday, I left with a headache. Tuesday, I left exhausted, and I thought, I'm not doing anything different. What's going on? And I really started paying attention to it. I was like, wait a minute, I'm exhausted because all these people around me are all spun up, and I can feel that tension, and it's affecting me negatively. So the fact that I've moved to working from home, I'm a lot more relaxed and I'm a lot less tired. So you have to pay attention to other people's stress levels. And while you can't do anything to mitigate that, you can do some self-care things. Maybe I walked outside and walked across the street and got a drink, a tough cup of tea, and came back and that helped alleviate some of that kind of stuff. You have to detach when there's a lot of people around you that are in chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yes, which takes us to a fourth principle: adaptability. Right, because the facts are going to change in a crisis, and it requires being adaptable as the facts change, which includes information will be conflicting. So sometimes we'll need to take a step back as well, and being able to do that from a leadership standpoint, that can be hard on a self-image. But it's like, well, you know what, we made this decision, we were moving this direction. Now we have found that with better information, that's not the best step, which ties back into communicating or in fact over communicating. It seems that a lot of companies are now shifting to working from home when they hadn't planned to. For example, I was talking to one company that they have a go live date of April 1st for a new software system that they're putting in place. Well, now there are consultants that are doing the work, putting the new system in, that are going to be doing the training, and all of their team are all working at home from all different locations. But yet they're sticking to the April 1st date, which brings us to a fifth principle, which is stay focused on mission and what's relevant to, what's the objective, what's the mission as well.
Right. Well, there's all those, there's a lot of organizations that fall under those categories of essential. And the company I work for is a defense contractor. So we are essential. So we're at home, but my area of expertise is contracting. So I can do that anywhere. But production is still in full force and effect. So they're still producing because it's been deemed essential, and we're not shutting down. I mean, I'm grateful for that, for the job sense, and the management in the company has been constantly, we're getting from, the CEO of the company, and then our segment leader, we're getting, this is the, like, first it started with, okay, nobody's traveling, no conferences, no nothing. And then it was like, okay, you're not traveling anywhere. Then it's like, okay, we're not having any visitors unless they have a healthcare form. Then it's like, okay, we're not having any visitors, period. And every day it was you expected the leadership to give you, okay, this is how we're proceeding. And knowing that, okay, I can expect that from my leadership. They're putting out the information I need. And so anybody else's kind of ideas or chitter chatter or whatever, that doesn't matter, because it came out from the leadership, and this is the chain of command. This is who's making the decisions, and then we're going forward. And it's fluid. It changes. And like in the military, when I was deployed, you didn't have any. You had some set guidelines of what you were going to do, but okay, today I'm going to do this. Wait, can't do that because of this, so I got to go over here and do this. You have to be able to adapt and overcome with that, and be able to switch gears pretty quick and course correct and move out in a different direction.
Yes, and as we saw at the federal level with CDC and some of the other organizations, cutting through the red tape and waiving some of the normal policy and procedure judiciously, of course, is crucial to being able to keep pace with change as facts change, as find something that's a good idea, be able to test it and move forward quickly, as opposed to getting dug into, well, this was the next thing, so we can't do anything else until that happens.
Right. In my job in contracting, so when I was an Air Force contracting officer, we had a lot of laws and rules in the federal acquisition regulation that we had to follow. You had to have competition over a certain dollar amount. You had to award to small business, and you had to have all these statutes and regulations and things you had to do. But when you go and you're deployed in a deployed environment, all that goes out the window, because that's going to impede the ability to get the materials and the equipment you need for the war fighters. So that stuff goes out the window. Same thing here, and I'm glad that they're doing that. The thing that some people need to stop doing, well, anybody who's doing it needs to stop doing, is need to stop complaining.
Yes.
Complaining, negativity, they think they know better, or they think they could do a better job. Well, they're not in a leadership position. So I think that the negativity and the complaining should stop, and people should detach from that stuff. The trolls need to stop. I mean, that's not helping the situation. All that is hindering the situation and making more people stressed out that read and follow that kind of stuff.
Yes. And we've gotten to know each other pretty well working together over a period of years. And you know how much I like things like the governor says you have to stay home. It's like, really? I work from home and wasn't planning on going out tomorrow, but guess what? I'm going out now. I'm just, and so I had that emotional reaction, like going, hey, you know what? This is the situation. So it's like, work with that. What can I contribute in surrounding myself with people like yourself, with our mutual friend Glenn Morshower, John Limbacher, that have also been doing webinars, and listening to their perspective. It helped me keep my mindset focused on what's the current situation, what can I do to contribute and help to keep things move forward. Because if we're pulling together, then we'll get through this a lot quicker.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. The whole mission that as I see it, I think of everything from a mission perspective. So the mission is flatten the bell curve.
Yeah.
The best
Right.
way to do that is everybody needs to just stay away from everybody else, because there's so many people that got the virus, and you don't know who they were around, and the other people's symptoms aren't going to show up. So people just need to be away from each other. Everybody just needs to just chill out, stay away from each other. I know that there's a lot of people. I'm so grateful that I still have an income, and I know there's a lot of people who don't, and
Right.
that's
Yes.
a very stressful and very very fearful place to be. But I think if we all just kind of stay in our respective silos and flatten this bell curve, we'll be able to get back to normal a lot faster.
Yes, because my wife Alice and I, we were out shopping this morning, and I was just astounded at the grocery store was managing the situation excellently. And I thanked the staff, I thanked the manager, and the manager looks at me and go, "What for?" And I go, "Because of how you're running this, it's very well organized." And I go, "Plus, because you're here and your team's here, we appreciate that you came in along with your staff to keep the place open, so that we can be able to pick up a couple of things that we found we were a little bit short on." And the sad thing was, the people that were shopping, maybe 50% of the shoppers were actually making an attempt to respect the 6 foot rule. And there were a handful, maybe 4 or 5 that I saw in the entire store, of people that were clearly in panic mode, and they're just like pushing their way through everything. And there wasn't any conflict between people, but you could just see where they've got that, those abrupt motions and whatnot, and they're not making eye contact, and they see something that they want, and they're just like, oh, rather than waiting for someone that's coming around a corner with a shopping cart, or someone's reaching in the refrigerator for milk, waiting for them to close the door and step back so you can maintain 6 feet. They just, reach right on in, bump up against them, and move on. And think, 4 or 5 people like that in a group of however many there were, I'm sure they were below the prescribed limit for state of California. That can all of a sudden set off another chain reaction of people becoming infected.
Yeah, definitely. I just had a thought come to mind, because you were involved in helping with the different cleanup and stuff during the LA riots. What did you see
Yes.
leading change wise and managing during that chaotic situation?
Well, the focus on what needs to be done. It's one thing, it's survival, because I was there for 2 days doing cleanup at the end of the 1992 riots. First day we got shot at once, but everybody pulled together. It was that focus on what's the objective here, what do we need to do, because it truly was a survival mode. I mean, the city was literally burning. On Thursday, on my way home from work, I stopped on the infamous 405 interstate, and there were several of us that just pulled over, because all you could see from downtown LA to Long Beach, which is like 12, 13 miles, there's just a line of fire all the way down the freeway. So it was that no matter what differences we might have had, or people that would have otherwise maybe not just not associated but been hostile towards each other, we're focused on, look, how can we help each other. We had people from the local community in South Central LA bringing water to us and thanking us for coming out. There were other people that were still looting the stores that we were working to clear debris away from the stores so the fire department could come in and spray water on what was still smoldering, or in some cases was still reflashing in the fires. And there was social pressure on those that were still acting a fool, if you will. But again, it was that certain, as long as we're focused on the same goal and working together towards that, all the rest of the issues fell away. And that kind of focus on mission is really, really needed, particularly for a leader, and to keep people focused on that. Example would be the second day we had people had a family show up, and they're doing a tourist mode, right? This SUV pulls up, mom, dad, and a couple kids get out, and we were were providing some guidance, myself and another gentleman, to the people that were at the strip mall where we're clearing debris. And he looks at me and he goes, "Well, what qualifies you to be in charge?" I'm like, "Look, I'm not in charge. I've just been doing this for a while, and people ask questions and I answer them." So he begins to assert himself that he wants to take charge, and it didn't work out really, really well, because everybody kind of looked at him and like, "Could you just leave, please? And why did you bring your children?" I mean, we're talking grade school age children. And because the mom asked, "Is this safe?" And a couple of us look at her and go, "You're in a riot zone." So relative to what it was like a couple of days ago, yeah, we haven't heard any gunshots or been shot at yet today. And she's like, "Yet today?" And it's like, okay, they piled the kids in and got out of there, because their response was so inappropriate to the situation. Well, a long answer to that, but thanks for the reminder.
No, I mean, because but you brought up a good point, which I can, I'll think about that towards 9/11. Everybody pulled together.
Yes, right.
And everybody was on one accord. So that's what needs to happen now. That everybody needs to pull together and be on one accord. Some people are not taking this seriously.
No, and that showed up in the grocery store this morning. It's like, going, really?
Well, yeah, and it showed up with you saw that we talked about this a little bit about the spring breakers in Florida.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Like the one kid that was, "I'm not going to let some virus, interfere with my spring break." Like, wow, really?
Right.
What if you, contract the virus and pass it on to your relatives, and then, people die because of you didn't want it to ruin your entitled spring break? It's just
right.
That's not pulling together. That's people not taking it seriously. And that's the kind of thing that'll cause the bell curve not to shrink down, because there's a group that's going to take it serious,
yes,
and those that don't want to, and those that don't want to are going to cause the rest of us to, be delayed even longer.
And the sad truth is, it's going to cause some what could have been avoided tragedies, where you get someone like that who goes to their spring break, goes to the party on the beach, as we saw in some of the news reports, and then a couple of weeks later, being around the family, especially if they're in an area where they get an order to, like, "Hey, everybody stay home as much as possible," and they pass it on to their grandmother or their grandfather, who's in a high risk group, and ends up getting ill and passes away. There will be unfortunate stories like that could have otherwise been avoided had they taken it seriously and respected the guidelines. I mean, the guidelines are really simple from CDC in terms of how to flatten the curve: 6 feet apart, wash your hands, don't cough and spray, and don't be, a fourth would be, don't be in contained areas as the core. There's more that goes along with it, but those are the basic things that we can all do.
Yeah. And if people just abide by that, that's going to go a long way to shrinking that bell curve and getting us back on a path, because, obviously when this is over, the economy is going to have to recover. There's a lot of people that are out of work and they'll have to go back to work. There's a lot of things that were canceled. There was a lot of, I was actually supposed to be at a conference this weekend, and it ended up going online, but I was supposed to exhibit baskets and beads there. So, that conference, I've had some speaking engagements cancel. And I have some others that are still on the calendar, but I know they're going to cancel too. So other events that I had scheduled, everything's canceling right and left. So that income is not there.
And that's a great example, because something seemingly that simple. So the conference is canceled. It goes online. You would have exhibited and made some sales with baskets and beads, which supports your ladies in Africa, as you referenced earlier. So now that support line for an at-risk community, because if the virus starts spreading there, they're in a situation where they don't have the systems in place that we do that help us flatten that curve, could be devastating. Plus, people like yourself that are supporting them outside the country, they lose that lifeline as well.
Right. So that's yeah, the problem with that. So like, parts of Kenya, they're doing the isolation thing,
Mm-hmm.
but and obviously washing hands and things like that. But these women live in a slum. They don't wash their hands because they don't have running water. They get some water from the river and boil it to cook. They don't have extra to wash their hands with. So those kind of communities like that don't have that are at higher risk, just like our homeless population here. There's probably not as many places for them to wash their hands and be clean.
Mm-hmm.
So downtown LA, Los Angeles has a huge amount of homeless people. So they're really at high risk. And I'm sure there's a big concern. I know I've read some of the things where there's a large concern and that they were trying to address that, but I don't know that they've had the opportunity to handle that the way they wanted to.
Yeah, it creates a big challenge. And, even if the basic human suffering of having that at-risk population, using the homeless in LA for an example, to be hit hard, have high, get sicker, have higher fatality rate, isn't enough. At the very least, people need to understand that also has a ripple effect, right? Because that echoes. It goes from the main population to an at-risk population like that, and as they get really sick, then that splashes back like a ripple in the water or a wave on the shore back into the general population again. We really are all linked together in this.
Yeah, and then we were talking earlier also about the prison systems.
Yes,
they're all in tight quarters, so it's that's
a petri dish.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's a lot of at risk, and if people would just pull together and just do what's been recommended by the health officials and not believe all of this, because I've gotten, I'm sure you've gotten it too. There's people sending all of this nonsense around. That's all you have to do is look it up, and it's all fake. I think there was some report supposed to be by some doctor, and if you look it up, the doctor's made up, and none of the stuff. So they're on the I think the CDC and the World Health Organization both have the myths, all these myths that are going on out there, like, oh, if you bathe in alcohol, you're not going to get it. Well, if it's already in your body, bathing in alcohol is not going to do anything, or whatever all that nonsense is that's going around out there. But people just, like, it's almost like they want to grab on something and believe in it, and then they pass it around to everybody. And unfortunately, there are those people who will believe that, and will think, oh, look, here's the cure, I can do this. I'm like, verify the facts, and most of that is not factual, because there is no cure for it that's been proven. And that when there is one, the health organizations are going to let us know.
Right. And they're testing, they're reporting what they're testing on. Nothing is, it's testing. They're doing, okay, it looks good, but it's still not finalized as going, okay, this will actually be the treatment we need to do.
Yeah, like they're testing that malaria drug,
Right. Yeah.
Testing, quote unquote, testing. It's a test.
Cautious optimism, but for those of you, as you're watching this, if you're not familiar with the Stockdale paradox, look it up. Term coined by Jim Collins, and it's just a mindset of saying, okay, face the brutal reality. What are the brutal facts of where we're at right at the moment, and we will get through this. Having that determination, we just don't know how long it's going to play out. But no Pollyanna.
Yeah.
And for heaven's sakes, keep it. Take the guidance seriously. I'm watching the time. I want to be respectful of your time. And also, as you're watching this, promise we wouldn't go too much more than 30 minutes to keep it tight, since it's Sunday evening. Eldonna, I really appreciate you doing this. And hopefully, as you're watching this, you found this useful. Do what you need as a leader to stay calm first. Make sure that you are checking sources of data and running them down so you've got good information. so that you can make as the best decisions possible on the very limited information you got available. Have a be ready to be adaptable. Things are going to continue to change, and that's just something to live with. So over communicate with the people that you're involved in a leadership role with, and make sure you've got a good solid framework of principles that you can stand on and follow as a guide, because normal process, normal policy and procedure, all the bureaucratic red tape, it's out the window and has to be, so that you can adapt and respond quickly.
Agree. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. It's always great to be able to talk with you, learn, and have a few laughs. Sorry you didn't see the pre-show, and you won't be here for the post-show, but we were laughing like crazy before. So find that as well. That's always good medicine. Find a space where you can see some humor in what's going on around you.